to Dead Time with your host, Holly Faust. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Dead Time Tales. This week, I actually have a person that is coming on to talk about a haunted location. So I have Kenneth Holden here with me tonight. Hi, Kenneth.
Hello.
And so Kenneth has resided in Marion, South Carolina all of his life. His family has maintained residence in the area for over 300 years. And as a child, he had some paranormal experiences. And, basically he was told to by another paranormal group to eventually join a group. And that's when he became a member of the Warren Legacy Foundation. And he stayed with them for about 6 years until he retired. And now, while working this organization, he would interview and become a friend with Jennifer Vanboskerck. Did I pronounce that correct, Kenneth?
Vanboskerck.
Vanboskerck. And after retirement, they remained friends. So in the fall, Jennifer would search for a new home, and at the reference of Mr. Holden, she would call and one day become the owner of the Smith Collins Funeral Home. Now that to me already speaks haunting. So a few months later, Mr. Holden moved in with his friend to help renovate the home, and during their tenure on the location, they had a lot of occurrences that made them really suspect that it had more than just a few spirits. So, in the beginning, when they lived on the property, the spirits did their best to get Mr. Holden and Miss Van Boskert, I probably pronounced that wrong again, and along with her son to leave. But the spirits' actions really did nothing but fuel them to dig deeper into the history of the property, and so far, they've been able to name and provide documentation for about 10 spirits, but yet a lot more have spoken to the owners, to paranormal groups through EVPs. And with each new day, a new spirit emerges and new documented evidence comes forward. So, welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being on. I really enjoy highlighting some haunted locations because I myself love to travel. I've traveled from Pennsylvania all the way to Iowa by car
Mhm.
to investigate. So I'm always looking for some new and even some older places that I've already been at to share with people because I think it's pretty neat because of the history. And especially on the East Coast, we have such a long colonial history. And
Mm,
even with slavery and stuff, that there is a lot of hauntings that appears on the East Coast.
Yes,
And now your location is called Holliday House, correct?
it is.
Yep. Now, can you just tell us a little bit about the house itself? I know you had sent me like a huge history, so you wanted to share some of that. That would be great.
Hey, well, as far as the land goes, from what documentations we have actually found, Mr. Jesse Holliday actually purchased the property in 1891. We have found documentation where his father, Mr. Joseph Holliday, who, if you ever do research on Gallivan's Ferry, he's the founder of it. And to this day, their family still owns over 1,000 acres of land down there. But Jesse bought the land. As far as the age of the house, we don't know. There's no documentation to say when it was built. And from the brickwork and the way some of the aspects are in this house, it could be as old as 1850s, 1860s. But Jesse and them bought the house. He was already married. Him and his wife, Sarah or Sally Holiday, actually have 4 kids. We do know that 3 of the 4 passed away in the house, and yes, the kids do visit us quite often. Um, and then in 1901, Sally actually passed away. She ended up getting blood poisoning from a surgery, and then he turned around and got married again in 1903. Stayed here till about 1915, and then went to the new owners, which were the Jenkins family. And mind you, when I say these people's names, all these people are still here. You can actually go up to their bedrooms and have full conversations with these people. I'll
Wow, that's
record them.
awesome. That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, then it went to the Jenkins house, Eva and Alex. He'll come out for Miss Jennifer. They like to have nice little conversations. But he will not come out for me, but Miss Eva will. Miss Eva is very prim and proper. She does not like cussing. She wants you to be a gentleman. She wants you to be a lady. And we do try to tell people that when they come in this house. And if you have not listened to us and Eva does react. She likes to pinch, she likes to smack, and she will do it. Evan is not here, thankfully. She's actually her body when she was buried up in North Carolina. So hopefully she's up there haunting somewhere.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. Then after them, about when Miss Eva started getting sick, she got tuberculosis, and she ended up being sent to a care facility around 1939. She died shortly after, but her daughter did sell the property towards the end of her life, and in 1940 it opened up as the Smith Brothers Funeral Parlor. Now they were going good, great business, well respected in the area, and in the 70s, the older brother PB, who unfortunately had a lot of misfortune in his life. He had two sons pass away, so he was supporting himself, his wife, the wives of his kids, and all of his grandchildren. He worked himself to death, and he did have a massive heart attack on our back porch outside the embalming room. And yes, we still have a fully functioning embalming room,
I love that.
and it's actually right behind me through that door. And then in 1980, his son and daughter sold the property to the Collins family. And the Collins ended up, when they bought the property, they bought the rights to the business because they were just getting out of it altogether. So oldest funeral in the town. It was started before the year 1900. So it was
Oh,
going
wow.
active up to 2015, to 75 years.
Wow.
And they had a family dispute. They shut the door and never come back until Miss Jennifer bought the location.
Yeah, and I am
Some dirty.
fascinated.
We got some dirty
Yeah, well,
history
and I've
now.
always dirty history. I've always been fascinated with funeral homes. I always share with people I actually grew up right
Hmm.
next door to a funeral home. Now I'm not sure how this home was, but I know the one that I grew up next to, the funeral director and his family lived there. And his embalming room, I could see it from my bedroom. I could literally look
Hmm.
down through the little window and watch him embalming people. So I never had a fear of death or anything like that because of that.
I will say this: this home, a lot of people come to, especially teens, and they're so nervous. They are
Mhm.
scared to go to a funeral home. But when you come through our front door, you're not a stranger to us. Your family. We're going to treat you
Mhm.
like family. And the whole house has a sense of peace. Now, but when you go upstairs, as far as living, uh, they did have their on-site help lived
Mhm.
upstairs, but the
Okay.
actual business that those families had their own houses elsewhere. But we do know some of the people. We've got to meet with them that's lived here on site, and every single one of them has reported to us uh, that they experienced things here. We had a man that was actually a homeless man because, like I said, when they shut the doors in 2015, you know, the doors didn't open back to anything until 2024. And he would come in and he would stay to one room because of the stuff that was going on. He would watch people walk around inside the house, and it was spirits. And we've even had cops come in. They didn't know that Jennifer had bought the property, and they would think someone was breaking in. So they come pulling up, and they come up and we give them a little tour, show them what we were doing, and introduce ourselves. And they would tell us stories of seeing people sleeping on couches, and they go to wake them up, and they just disappear.
Wow. That's really, like, top level, like, when you think about seeing things, and, I've always thought, for someone that's always been, like, not a fearful of the funeral industry or anything like that, I've wondered because the funeral home that I grew up next to is still running and still in existence. It's the 2nd or 3rd generation now
Hmm.
of, directors that are running it. The funeral director was, that I grew up with he was the father of the current one, and he's like 98 now or 97. And so I always wanna ask them, like, "Hey, does anything weird go on in your house?" Like, because they know what I do, I don't ever hide it, but they're also very religious and very
Hmm.
Catholic, so I'm often afraid to, like, go up and say, "Hey, by the way, do you have weird stuff that goes on in your house?" Because I think that's where I got my first real interest, like, other than, other things, like, I always tell people, I grew my biggest, people that I looked up to in the field were Ed and Lorraine Warren. So when you had said about being part of the Warren Legacy Foundation, I actually had done a few things for Chris years ago.
Hmm.
And so I was even more fascinated because I grew up not far from Pittston, PA, where the Smurl hunting took place. So that, like, I remember seeing, like, I was a little kid when it happened, and I remember seeing Ed and Lorraine on our local news talking about this stuff. And up until that point, I had never heard about anybody actually doing that, and it stuck with me up until I got interested more in the paranormal after my friend's death when I was 18. So, I'm always, anytime I hear people that were involved with the Warren Foundation and or any of those things, I'm always intrigued to learn more because they were the people that got me like really started in seeking out the paranormal in general.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, was that you or was that because you said that you're there, so I'm making sure that
Uh,
nothing's going on behind you.
no, that's actually the front door. We got some groceries being delivered.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure because, like, with my luck, we'll get, something popping up
Well,
on the screen saying,
I
"Hey,
chose
hello."
I chose to actually sit in the dining room, and we actually do seances here on rare occasions for people, or if there's certain spirits that they're having issues coming through, like some of the the help
Mhm.
will come in here because it's a little bit more easier for them to access.
Right.
Because we have figured out there is a portal in the basement, and it's right over the basement,
Well,
so
yeah,
it's
that
easier
makes sense
access.
too.
But I did choose my location just to see if you catch anything tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. I would love, I will make sure when I watch it back, I will have my ears on because, like, the other places that I've done one other haunted location, but we weren't recording. She wasn't there when we were doing our filming. So I'm really excited now to know that. Now, has there been, because I know, like, I've been not to Marion, South Carolina. I was at Lake Marion, which is, I probably, not too far from Charleston, because we did
Mhm.
Charleston when we were there. And I loved that whole area. Like, that whole area intrigued me because I'm half indigenous and there were the mounds that were down there, understanding, like, Lake Marion, and an example, is a whole town that's underwater, and that really intrigued me. But, knowing, like, you're in an area that had a lot of slavery and a lot of
Mhm.
plantations,
Yeah.
and, I don't know if, like, is there a possibility that the home was built on part of a plantation? I mean, I know pretty much everything on the East Coast has been built on native land. So,
As far as being on that, it's a potential. I mean, there's no
mhm,
technical, validation of it, no documentation because unfortunately there was a fire in
mhm.
the 1800s here, and a lot of the old stuff did get burned.
Okay.
But if you go and look on the maps, was it the Sanborn maps? Um, you do see this location on the map for the first time in 1915. But before that, only thing you see is Main Street and certain other roads because they were
Okay.
donated by the rich people of the time. But from documentation that we have found ourselves right behind us,
Mhm.
uh, Jesse's father Joseph went in with two other gentlemen, and they bought 576 acres of land. But we do know that before they bought it, there were three family, well, it was three separate families, but two of them were related as two brothers. But between the three households, there were over 280 slaves.
Wow.
There is one spirit that's come here recently. We're still doing research on him. He's not come out with a name, but we figured out what tribe he's from. It's from the Himba tribe
Mhm.
in Africa. He has shown himself fully to me. So that's how we figured out where he was because the hair is very distinctive. It looks like a
Okay.
horn. Um, but it's very possible because Jesse's first wife, Sally, her father owned a lot of slaves, and where he lived is still known. It's known as Ellis Grove today. But he had well over, I think it was like 600 slaves.
Oh, wow.
So it's very possible that he sent some of those here when his daughter got married.
Okay. Yeah, I often wondered that because I know, like, up here in PA, we really don't have. as much because we there wasn't really a lot of slavery up in the Northeast.
Hmm.
But I know from traveling down south, I have family in Virginia and, further down. And just remember driving through and seeing all the old plantation homes. And when we were up in North Carolina, we actually had an opportunity to tour
Hmm.
an old plantation, and they still had the slave quarters that were built. And, for me at least, I always got not different feelings being a person that's very empathic. The feelings that I get from that type of land compared to like where the actual home was,
Hmm.
there was a totally different feeling. A lot of it was, feeling down and downtrodden, and, those feelings that you would get being someone that was under slavery. But at the same time, I felt a lot of pride and a lot of power and a lot of, pride in who they were as a people. I could hear when we were in North Carolina the actual singing when we were at the old slave quarters. And, so I find places like that, especially down south, so fascinating. And, can you like just give me like one example of one of the best thing that you feel is one of the best pieces of evidence that you've been able to capture there?
And what we believe was the old nanny's room or the service room that's upstairs.
Mhm.
We actually do have video of a picture because the glass is no longer in the window, so it's wood. It's all
Okay.
boarded up. There's a picture leaning against the window, and it has some little decorations, like a little candle in front of it, one of the little electric ones. And there's no wind, there's no way for anything to get in that room, and you literally watch it. Something grab it from the top and fling it across the room.
Oh, so they might not have liked that picture, huh?
No, so all the more reason that we put it back in place. But then a few months later, Jennifer was up there with a friend of her son's in the same room, and she was doing an EVP session. And she asked who removed the photo off of her windowsill and tossed it. And all you hear is this foot patter run up to the uh, recorder and says, "The black people."
Oh,
Clear as day, Class A EVP.
and was there anything particular about that picture that would have made them want to get rid of it? Was it something that maybe culturally bothered them, or was it just
No, it's one of the things you get from like the dollar store.
Oh, okay,
It,
so it's just
it
like,
was
we don't like it there.
yeah, but we put it back. I mean, we don't want to, get them mad. We want to work with them, and
Right.
for the most part, most of the spirits that we have here, we form like a working relationship with.
Mhm.
I mean, they have their moments and they will do their things to us and try to scare us, but for the most part, we work with them, and we tell them if you don't like something, let us know.
Well,
But
that's good too, I like that.
ever since that day, we tell them, the pictures are staying in the room. We may take some of the decorations out, but the pictures will stay in the room. And there was one incident when I was up there, I actually got attacked,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was so bad that the marks went from the lower part of my neck and went down to my tailbone. And I had clothing on. I had two
Oh,
shirts
wow.
on and a coat, and I got scratched. And it peed me off because we just hired a new handyman to come help us do some work, and he went in that room, and the same thing happened to him.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I went up there and I told him, I told that one spirit, I said, all right, now you've done it to me, that's fine. You've done it to someone who's trying to help with the house, that's not fine. If you do it again, I will exorcise you and remove you from this property. And it has not happened in that room since.
Well, that's a good thing. So, are most of the hauntings then definitely more intelligent than a residual
Oh
haunting?
yes, they are very intelligent. I mean, we have a few residual, and we kind of know what rooms they kind of play out in.
Mhm.
But most of them are intelligent, and some of them, if you do offend them, they will follow you around the whole house and do stuff. Others, well, like Joseph, for example, if you're in the room that we call his room, we have his photo. We've got it set up like a room from the time period when he lived. Um, if you are someone he don't like, he before you even get to that door, he raises the temperature and makes you sweat. He don't want you there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I have a very difficult time. controlling my own body temperature to begin with. So,
But hey,
so I'm always asking people, is it cold in here or is it just me? Because like recently I don't tolerate cold well. It used to be heat.
mhm,
So I don't know how this summer is going to be, but right now it's everything cold. Like I go to work, I wear a pair of long johns and two or three shirts and a jacket and and I work, my husband and I own a small business and yeah, it's cold in there, but it's not that cold. But so yeah, for me, I'm just intrigued because, feeling like the temperature I've heard of the temperature dropping in a room,
mhm.
but never raising it. So
Oh, they
that's
will.
interesting.
He will. And we had a team here just a few weeks ago, and they asked, some of them drove a pretty good distance. So they asked if they could stay here for the night. And we're like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Because a couple of the rooms do have beds in them that you can sleep in. And one of the ladies said she kept get wake up all night because something was spanking her on the butt. And she woke up the other lady thinking it was her. And she's like, no, it's not me. And she turned over. And then at some point she rolled back in her sleep and someone was spanking her butt again. I said, that's just him letting you know that he's just two women in his bed and he's a little happy.
Oh my goodness. I like that though. I mean, I've had experiences where I've had things wake me up in haunted locations, but I've gotten to the point now where I sleep and I put my blankets up over my head and then I'm
Oh,
like hoping they don't bother me. But
I mean, but if you sleep here, they're pretty peaceful. They don't mess with too many people. But you may hear the walking, and depending on what time of night it is and
Mhm.
what energies are stronger, you may hear the men arguing.
Okay.
But usually the arguing comes from downstairs, but they're so loud because I mean, this house we have not updated it to the point that has heating and air.
Okay.
So when you come in this house, you're living and staying and experiencing as they did in the 1800s, and so you have to be ready for anything.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine because I've experienced like some places I've been to, they do have modern, utilities and stuff, but I've also been to like the prisons where they don't have anything going on.
Hmm.
And so now you guys aren't living there at all.
We do live on the premises. What was eventually built uh, back in the 60s, there was a funeral going on
Okay.
the original wraparound porch,
Mhm.
and there were so many people that it collapsed. So once it collapsed, they added a room on each side. So they had a chapel, and then they had the room where they sold the caskets, the floral arrangements, all that. They did the business on
Okay.
site, and so we live in the chapel area. That is completely closed off to people. No one's allowed in there unless we let you. So we are
Okay.
here 24/7. So if there's any issues, we always tell people if certain things are happening, you don't like it, ask them to stop. If they don't stop and they persist, come get us because if they stop, because they know we don't play.
Well, that's good to know too. Because I have been at locations where they kind of like leave you go for the night. And I mean, we've never left a location, but I know people that have like literally picked up and just said, no, we can't do this and have gone.
Yeah, we've had a few do that, and we don't. I mean, as we don't understand, you spend so much money to
Right.
come to these places, and compared to most on the market, we are very cheap. I mean, we have places, like from the big jailhouses, some of the more well-known locations, just because of the size of the building. When you come here, most places you get less, like the average house,
Hmm.
I'll put it that way, location, unless you're going to like a big plantation or you're
Right.
going to a jail. And here you're getting over 6,000 square feet to investigate.
That's a decent size.
And there were murders, and we're not charging a whole lot of money for you to do it. I mean, there's a whole history that you're not going to find. We know that the spirits have told us that there were hangings and murders and people buried on the property. And like I said, we're still trying to get documentation, but this is through spirit interaction. There's just so many things.
And do you think like some of this stuff that you're getting, like especially with the hangings and the murders and whatnot, do you think some of that could be history from before there was even a home on the property? Because like, thinking about like, back in the day when they would have public hangings or when they, things would happen with different wars and battles, like how many people like could possibly have been buried at that time?
It's very possible because one of the spirits, one of the first ones that we ever encountered, that told of a murder. hanging on the premises is a little African American girl, and we do have her name, but of course the family has the records, and we're not allowed to go to the old houses and
Right.
look at the records. Um, but she told us her mother's name and told us that her mama was hung in the side yard, and where approximately the tree was that she was hung out of is actually another house now. It's built right after the
Oh,
turn of the
wow.
century, so that tree's gone. Um, but she's told us, and she's told us that mama's buried, but at the same time, she's also told us that she was chased by a gentleman. She's given us a full, descriptor, and we're not artists, so we have to depend on AI
Right.
to get these pictures. From what we were told, we ended up going into AI and got an image, and then we turn around and I started having visions of a girl running through a field, and I saw this guy, and I took that, put it into AI, got an image. Then we had two other psychics come in at later times. We didn't say nothing about, you know, this one person, and they picked up on the same thing. And when we put all their descriptions into AI, it was all the same guy, and it was at different age points. And then one woman, not psychic at all, she'd come in for an investigation, and she's local. She did her thing, left. About a week later, she contacted us crying. Her car would not start.
Oh, wow.
This gentleman had hitched a ride with her. He took privy to her and scared her so bad she's not been back, but he's not left the property. We have him restrained where he can't leave the property now. Um, but we asked her what a description of the gentleman, and it's all the same guy.
I that's just mind-blowing to me. And actually thinking about it, like those of us that aren't artsy, before AI, what did we have to try to piece these things together? At least we have AI now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank
and I
goodness.
always say that to people, like, you're so against it, but think about things that can be taken, shown and done in the field by putting a few descriptors into AI technology.
Oh yes.
And
But
yeah,
this
I'm
one dude, no, ooh, he's a mean one. He is a mean one.
well, and that's, like from at least, my experience, you find them everywhere. And I always tell people because, people like to say the D word very often when they go places. And
Oh
I
yes,
always say, but it's not always that. They're like less than 1% of all hauntings. What happens is if a person is a jerk in life, they're the same type in death, and they're going to display those evil tendencies.
that's true. That's exactly right. And we've had a gentleman here recording for a show, and his assistant, a machine kept popping out the D word, and we have it in the contract. If you want to film here, you better not say that
Right.
word, or your contract cancels at that point. Because we don't have that here. If we had it, it would have already shown by
Right.
now,
And
or gave
someone
some
with your
indication of
background, in the paranormal, you're
yeah.
going to know and be able to decipher that before even a common
Hmm.
investigator. And that's what I think, that's
Yep.
a conversation I like to have with people all the time because it seems like it's the new catchphrase. And yeah, I hate to hear it when I'm on an investigation. I hear someone start yelling that word. I'm just like, no, no, go away. You no, we're not even going there because the team that I formerly worked for,
Yeah.
we did the same thing. We ruled out cases for the church. And we didn't even use that word, when we were on a case. We actually used the word bunny. So, to not give them power. If we thought that that's what was happening. And so we wouldn't use that word because we did, like we were noticing the trend, 15, 16 years ago. We were noticing this trend that seemed to be going to trying to make that popular.
Yeah, you don't want to make that popular because you don't know what kind of energy you're putting out there and what may come through because of
Hmm.
said energy.
And I mean, from the sounds of it, you don't need that kind of energy because you got a lot of stuff going on without that kind of energy.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a lot of people, and this is something that kind of gets me too. They'll go to a location they want to stay inside. Go out in the yard,
Yes.
explore, walk the grounds. Because there's a train wreck that happened back in the 1870s that happened right here next to the house, killed 60 people. We've had one team come in the yard and investigated the entire property. And they've got plenty of interaction from them
I wouldn't
spirits
be
out there. It
surprised.
got to a point they had to come
Well, and that's how
inside.
I was. Like for me personally, I went to the Hinsdale house up in New York. And
Hmm.
as soon as I pulled on the property, I had to cover my ears because the chanting and the bellowing that I was getting just from the woods around the home was more than what I was getting at that time from inside the house. Now, after the night, of course, it was a lot worse inside. I actually went out and slept in my car because I wanted to take my chances what was outside rather than what was inside. And so
Well, around here, you guys sleep inside. Don't sleep outside. But I mean, we are uptown. We are in the
okay.
historic district, and we have the old high school next to us, which used to be part of this property too at some point. But we got some people that don't like to drive correctly near the house, and you can hear them when they get up and go
Yeah.
vroom vroom. So, yeah, I wouldn't stay outside
No,
sleeping. I would come
when
inside.
we were at Hinsdale, that's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing around,
Hmm.
and yeah, I have, like I said, I've been out to Iowa to Malvern Manor. Now, what I like literally did there, there was a bunch of us that were sleeping at the manor because we were there for like a weekend. And
Hmm.
I could just remember all night long, like my friend kept waking me up. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? I'm like, just cover your head. Just cover your head and put in a pair of earplugs. You'll be fine. Because you could hear them running up and down the hallway all night long. And
Yeah.
to me, I used to work at a haunted location. So I slept there when I would work over the weekends because it was 6 hours away from my house. And I learned to sleep with earplugs and a blanket over my head. That solves the problem. You don't hear nothing, you don't see nothing. um Now, do you guys do rent out the location to investigators? Do you do overnights, or is there a set time, or
We do offer overnight. We offer 8 hour investigation and a 12 hour, which is
Mm,
essentially the overnight. You do get the coffin room. That's
okay.
your hub. And then you get the rest of the house to do as you please. But yeah, we do an 8 hour and a 12 hour. But something I would like to put out there to people that's interested in locations: do not ask for one thing and then try to get
Right.
something else. We experienced that for the first time late last year, and just it's a headache on everyone. So please don't try it. If you're an investigator, don't do it. If you want to do it overnight, do it overnight. If you want to do a shorter period and the location offers it, please do the shorter period.
Yeah.
There's a reason why things are set up the way they are.
And that's the most important thing as an investigator, if you want to do these historically haunted locations, is to respect the people who own them, because you guys are putting a lot out there to make these locations accessible for people.
Hmm. And some people like we're kind of like in part of a chain with other
Mhm.
locations, and they tell us all the time. People complain about the prices. I'm like, really? Do you know how much it costs to upkeep and to restore these locations so you can do what you do? I mean, for example, the room I'm in, the ceiling completely fell down, the old horsehair plaster from the previous owner.
Mm.
So they literally rip out all, and brace the flooring up, the old like 3 and 4 inch original pine, the heart pine flooring, the joists,
Mhm.
and do whole new wood on top. I mean, that's expensive, and we've got one, two, three, four, 5, 6, around another 12 rooms to do like that.
Yeah, and I can attest. I'm remodeling a house, and my house is tiny. So I can definitely attest to the expense just for my house, which was an old Sears kit from like the 1900s. And so yeah, I don't and I
Ooh.
yeah, that's another whole story. My house actually was owned by a funeral director too. So but yeah, no,
So
I definitely, and that's what I always do. Wait, I didn't
if
hear
we
what you said.
get our way, yeah, it keeps doing this weird thing. I don't know if it's the connection or if the ghosts are wanting me to shut up. But we're trying to work with other houses that's as old as
Mhm.
ours, so people can go in and investigate, even or either do like a little tour. But it's expensive everything we do, and these houses are a lot to
Oh,
maintain.
yeah, I mean, I know, having a small home on an acre of land, it's hard to maintain, and, then I look at these bigger places, like, people pay thousands upon thousands to go to, and they're not restored, they're not, habitable. They're, sometimes can be dangerous, and but they're willing to spend the thousands and thousands, but then when they're going to a
Hmm.
place that's actually in the process of restoration, they are, like, freaking out about the cost, but, you know, you guys have an overhead, you have electricity, you have whatever guys have running there that you need to keep up.
I'll put it this way: the biggest bill for any location is always the
Definitely.
electricity, and ours this past month was more than a couple of heart attacks. So usually when people pay and come, that's what it goes to is that we take everything else is took care of
Right,
out of our
and then, and
but
then you're trying to restore the place in the process, and that to me,
yeah.
as a researcher and as a historian, I'm more intrigued by these locations that were homes that have history, that have because I am a historian and I am a researcher and I want to learn about these past times. And I always
Hmm.
find a lot of these and that's why I tend to like, yeah, I like to do prisons. I love to do insane asylums. But, like a place like Malvern out in Iowa, I enjoyed being there because of the history of the home and the connection to other surrounding locations. And that's what keeps me going back because I think each time as an investigator that we investigate a location, we're peeling back another layer of history.
Oh yes, I mean we've had a team here before that we knew there were three kids that died upstairs, and we've been lucky to know their names, and we do know how one passed away. But we didn't realize how many children's spirits were here. One team literally set up a camera and just sat in the room and recorded, and you should see all these child-sized shadow figures running
Oh,
around this one
wow.
bedroom. And we literally about had a heart attack. I'm like, no wonder we don't like going up there cleaning. At least not
Well,
for
yeah,
long periods
and
of
you
time.
think as the history as a funeral home for that many years, and then the children that could have died in passing that may have lingered on.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm a full believer in spirits being able to exist in multiple locations because I've seen that from my own research, getting a spirit at one location, but then having them come through at another location. And not always because they're hanging out with us, but because there's a connection with that location. I've seen it in multiple locations where, we would get an entity at one location and then maybe go to another location that's several miles away that person or that child also had a connection to.
Hmm. But that's how Joseph Holliday is. He'll come here because he owns so much land behind us, and then he co-owned a business right up the road here that at during his time period he could see clearly from the second story of this house. And he's
Right.
not always here. You'll get his son more quickly than him, but when he is here, ladies
Yeah,
beware.
I was just thinking when you were saying about the one that doesn't like cuss words, I'm like, I would be getting
It's Eva.
slapped across the face probably the whole night because I'm also half Irish. So it's a very common phrase. Like my grandson's only 2 and he uses some words that adults shouldn't use. But
Well, I got Irish in me, and I love to cuss, but after Miss Eva come up to me one day after I was showing my butt
Mhm.
with Jennifer, and she was dealing with Eva, communicating with her, and she told Miss Eva, pinch him. Being nasty, and I walked out the room, went to they were in the gentleman's parlor. I walked over to the ladies' parlor to go into the chapel, and sure enough, someone come up right behind me on the base of the neck, right here on my shoulder, and pinched the crap
Yeah,
out of me.
that I can
I was like,
guarantee
oh yeah,
that I
not
would
doing it.
probably be experiencing a lot of that because I forget, and like you were saying about, like, the equipment. And I do know like Obuluses and things like that, they have a program dictionary. And for some reason, that's, something.
Hmm.
And I mean, like, how do you handle that when something like, do you ask them to like leave, or do you ask them to stop using that particular equipment, or?
Well, we when you come, we do a short history of the house, walking tour, and but once we get done with that, and you have to sign what forms you have to sign, the house is yours. Use whatever you want, but we do have security cameras everywhere. We do watch them, and if we hear you say the D word, I don't care if you're getting the best evidence in the world, you're going to help me stomping to go up them stairwells, and I'm going to come see you say, okay, this is in the paperwork. Don't say this word. We
Right.
watch you is recorded. We have cut it off. But as far as equipment, do what you want to do. If it helps you to get evidence and you believe that piece of equipment is not faulty in any way, shape, or form, and it gives you validation of a presence,
Right.
that's you. But I'm old school,
Me too.
and I still like doing the old school ways. And some of this newer stuff, like oh, what's it called? The one that does the dots and shows the little
Oh,
dancing
yeah, I know what you're
finger.
talking about. I call it the
I
Connect
hate those.
because my kids play with the Xbox and they have an Xbox Connect, and that's all that camera is. And
Hmm.
we've had that stuff happen in our house because it picks up latent signatures of humans. For me, that piece of equipment is easily debunked. Now, I haven't seen the
Yep.
newer ones that they're coming out with, the XLS, I think is what they're called, or SLS. I haven't seen the newer
Hmm.
ones that they say are supposedly are better, I guess, than the older ones that were just a Connect camera.
We have one of the newer ones, and
No,
trust me,
okay.
it's no good.
Yeah, because the most
We
technical I'll get is I have a REM pod, but it's not even a REM pod. It's actually a crystal pod that's made by another investigator.
Mhm.
And I actually like that better than the REM pod because one, it's built for me. It's made with amethyst and ametrine, and it's purple and it has a purple light on it. It's all, it's for me. So
Oh, you should definitely come. I would
yeah,
love to see that one in
I
action.
actually I love it. I've never been a techie type of person, but I was at a Paracon out in New Jersey, and I happened to meet this creator that has them, and I fell in love with it, and I commissioned one because I'm into like shiny things and purple, and I love crystals, and I like the theory behind working with a REM pod that gives you, the EMF, but at the same time, you have the added of, if someone that's into crystal therapy, you have the added benefit of the crystals all encrusted on top.
You know what? I'm glad you said crystal therapy and all. We had a lady come in. It's on one of the first teams that we ever had here. She is a
Yep.
Reiki master, and when she got to me, she didn't even touch me, and my head went to hurting. And we have learned, do not do Reiki in this location. Do not do Reiki at any location, because literally the energy that I don't know if she shifted it or what she did, but literally we could hear the spirits trying to
And
communicate, but
that's
they couldn't.
fascinating
They
because
can.
I was actually able, to help explain some of that away. I was actually able to be privy to an experiment that they were doing at the Rhine Institute in North Carolina on biophotons. And they were using yogis, they were using Reiki masters, and I'm a Reiki master. Now, I do not do Reiki at locations. I don't like to manipulate the energy because we don't know what energy spirits are feeding off of. And now I'll do it outside if someone's struggling and feels like they have an attachment. I'll try to pull with that energy to get them. But I was reading the research, and what they do is they were putting these people in a vacuum, and then they would have them start doing their work. And so when you have a vacuum, there's nothing. There were zero biophotons in the room to start off with. And they were finding like even martial artists and Reiki masters were manipulating the energy where they were able to build thousands upon thousands of biophotons in these small spaces, just doing this energy work. And so that to me makes sense why spirits were unable to communicate because of someone doing possibly Reiki, they're putting so much energy into a space, and it's not the same energy that these entities are feeding off of.
Yeah, because I know afterwards, they set up some of their equipment in that same room, and they were getting stuff, but it was like whatever was in the room before she done it
Right.
shifted to other rooms, and they got way too active. And we love our home. We love the spirits here. We love being able to interact with them on a friend to friend basis. But that night, some of them got very rowdy and got very nasty because they got shifted and moved out of place. And some got sent upstairs somehow. And that's places they don't typically stay. They don't even go, some of them. Some of them stay down here, and some stay up there, and then some go in between.
Yeah, and that's why I even tell my students when I'm training like new people in Reiki is please don't try to use this to manipulate in different locations because you don't know, especially in the paranormal, because you don't know what type of energy. We claim it comes from source, which is, whatever your spiritual belief is. It could be God, it could be, whatever. And when you're taking that energy and manipulating the environment of it, you're causing, you know, possibly harm to these spirits or pain
Hmm.
even. And especially if you're shifting it so much that they're being relocated. Like I can't even imagine what that spirit would feel like being, shifted out of an environment that they're comfortable with. Like that to me, like as an investigator, I believe in doing no harm and trying to leave as little trace
Hmm.
as possible when we leave a location.
Because I know not even a few days after they left, we can hear them. We do see them if they want us to see them. But that was the first night ever here for me that I channeled a spirit, and he had me doing laps around one
Wow.
room nonstop. And it got to a point that Jennifer come out and she wanted to know what I was doing, and it wasn't even me. I was spouting out not image, but information that I should not know. But it wasn't me. I'm channeling, but the spirit I'm channeling that was originally down here got shifted to upstairs to another room. So I connected with him, and whatever he was doing, I was doing down here
Right, and
and
he was
stayed in.
trying to probably get back to where he was most comfortable at in the location.
Oh
Well,
well,
that's
he's back
good.
now.
I hope he's happy. No, okay, well,
No,
you can't make everybody happy, but is he's no longer pacing?
he's not pacing, but he does like to follow us around over there now. Like he doesn't leave that area. Like we only have one bathroom in the whole place. So when we do have teams over, we let them know because ours where we live at is not 100%. So we still have to come to this one over here. And so you may hear us walk, and we have had teams actually notice when we walk through, we get someone stomping hard behind us. Like, oh yeah, he just follows us. He's been moved and he's back, and he's not happy with certain things. So that's his way of letting us know he's around and he's waiting for an explanation. He's not going to get one.
Hey, and with me, like, I mean, I don't know, like with the children, do you have like toys and stuff set up around the house for them or
Oh yes. Well, not downstairs because the children that's here, the ones that we know of,
okay,
are Victorian, and by Victorian society standards,
right.
kids were not to be seen or heard. They were kept to the back of the house. Now, up in their bedroom, we've got toys out the butt. We got a couple of modern that were left on the premises for any of the more
Mhm.
modern kids that may be here. But the bulk of what we have are Victorian or
Oh,
Edwardian
that's pretty cool.
toys.
Because I do know like some locations like have what they call like a doll room. And like I'm a doll fanatic. I mean, those are the rooms that I like to just sit in and relax. They don't scare me. So
Well, actually, in the kids' room, we just set up a bed today, um, to where when people start to come, they can rent the
mhm,
room overnight. And because we've had so many people that are scared of dolls, I made sure to put because we put them on
right.
an old steamer trunk, and they're right in front of the bed watching you. But there's so many dolls that she brought with her that half of the collection's in the kids' room. The other half of the collection is actually in the wife's bedroom, which is the tower room. So yes, we do have a tower in my house. So they're right up against the bed. But yeah, we got plenty of dolls
Yeah,
everywhere
that's
in those
pretty
two
cool.
rooms.
Now, do you guys have anything that at times you find being shifted or moved around that didn't belong where it is? and it shows up somewhere else in the house. Yeah.
all the
I
time.
always like that. So
we find we find nails and screws. That's when you come in. We do have a closet. We do have like a little coffee station and snack station for people, and we have a little closet that's up on the stairwell. We do find the nails and the screws out of there upstairs. So how do they get up there? We don't know. We have little objects that we kind of hide in certain rooms, and it may take a week. It may take a couple of weeks, but it'll find its way from on one side of the hall in a bedroom and be on the opposite side in the bedroom somewhere. And then downstairs, we're always misplacing stuff, so we know they're moving it, and most of that we don't even find.
yeah, I like
So
I had the opportunity to do a location where they actually had a doll that kept shifting around, and you would find it in a different part of the building every time you came or any time throughout the night. Like it was on the third floor one night, and then like an hour later we came back down to the basement and there it was. And so like that always, it doesn't really scare me. What scares me is when things grab me, or hit me. So
oh, you will get plenty of that in this house. You won't get the shifting too much, but you'll get the grabbing and all. But we do have one ball that's in the kids' room. We hide it. We love the. We have a turn of the century
okay.
crib that rocks, and we hide it up
Oh,
under
okay.
it. And we have lace that's hiding it. So we love to see what they do with that. And sometimes they move it, sometimes they don't. They try to get out and they get stuck. But we had one team here last year when we first started doing that, and it's on recording. It's on YouTube. They were sitting there and it just rolls
Oh,
out
that's
perfectly. And they said, okay, well, thank you for showing us that you're here if you want to play with ball. And they play around a little bit. And then at one point, the gentleman's like, okay, well, you've rolled the ball to me. Uh, what do you want me to do in reverse? What do you want me to do? And you see the ball stop and roll right back towards where it came from.
that. So they were saying we want to play ball, like,
That's right.
because I know that's why I think I've gotten a fascination, like when we talk about tech with the cat balls, because I actually
Hmm.
got to watch how they work in Salem, Massachusetts. We were in a historic house with an Airbnb, and we had them going crazy in the house because when we walked into that house, we're renting it as, a place to stay. And even though we're a bunch of paranormal investigators, we were there for fun. We were there for Halloween. We didn't want to, we weren't, really caring about the paranormal, but we literally no sooner walk into the building, and we know it's a home on the historical tour. And all of a sudden, someone said, "Did you open the basement door?" And everybody's like, "No." And the basement door just flew open. And we're like, "Why does this happen to us?" It's like they know right away that we're investigators.
But I would love for
Oh,
y'all to come
definitely.
down.
Now, do you guys have a website or any information where people can get more information on your location?
Yep. Just go to holidayhouse1895.com. That's holiday with
Okay.
two L's. And it shows everything, all of our price guides. We do rent the room separately if you want to stay overnight, or if you just, if you're coming through the area and need a place to stay, you can buy a room. We don't care. It's usually the one hotel
Okay.
that's here is booked up. Um, so it's all good. Just go there. It kind of tells you some of the history. We do have a little bit of videos that I think we're about to put up of some of the earlier information. We actually do have a video if she decides to post it. It's Mr. Smith, the guy who created the first
Okay.
parlor here. He passed away from a massive heart attack on the back porch outside what is now the embalming room. And Miss Jennifer was staying in a camper right off the back of the property here, so in full view. And we're sitting outside one evening, we're eating dinner, and we're watching, and this guy just walks out the back door, stops on the back porch, turns, looks at us, stands there for a few minutes, turns around, and disappears.
Wow.
So hopefully y'all can get that because he only does it for us. We want a team to capture
That
him
would be,
doing
yeah,
it.
that would be like, and are you guys, do you have a page on Facebook or anything like that for people or? Okay.
We do under the same name, the Holiday House,
Perfect. And I
1895.
will share all those links in the description. But I want to thank you again for coming on tonight. I enjoyed it so, so much. And like I said, all the links will be in the description on both the YouTube and the podcast page. So if you guys are looking to book a place, go down, stay for a weekend, like that's my goal, is to highlight some places for investigators so that they can find some new places to go. Definitely want to we need to start supporting some of these smaller places, especially ones that are working towards restoration.
Yes, because I'm even when I used to do this full time doing paranormal investigations, the big places are nice,
Yep.
but they're overly done, and some of them are overly exaggerated. Come to the small towns, go to the smaller locations. You typically get more activity, and it's a whole lot
Yep.
better.
And
It's
I
less
always tell
stressful.
people you can live history. Like it's great to
That's
do the
right.
prisons and the insane asylums, but these places, these small places, are living history. And if you love history, which I think most paranormal investigators do, it's great to have these small locations to be able to go to and really experience history.
Mhm. Oh yes, and I mean we do have a big announcement coming soon, but I will
Definitely,
let you
please
know.
do, because I'll share it on our page.
We will be hosting our very first paranormal conference the first weekend of
Woohoo.
October.
I love them. I'm actually going on my first circuit with paranormal conferences this year, so I'm pretty excited about it. So, I do small business, I create stuff, but I'm also an author. So, I share my books and, share my little creations that I make, and, so I'm branching out into the paranormal this year.
Good. Well, when we have it, just kind of keep an eye out when we start, advertising for
Definitely.
the vendors, and you're more than welcome
Definitely.
to
In
apply.
October, it doesn't snow yet, so
Oh no, it's still kind of
Well,
warm here in October.
up
At least it
here,
was
like
last
where
year.
we live, I do remember some like Halloween's having snow. But for the most part,
Hmm.
I don't mind traveling in October. I don't like to travel once there's a chance it's going to snow. Because I've come home in the middle of a hurricane from down south. We were in North
Hmm.
Carolina outside Cape Fear, and I had to drive back home in an open window when Hurricane Sandy was going up the coast. Yeah, my husband
Ooh.
called and said, "If you don't leave now, you aren't getting home for a while." So, yeah, and that was, like,
Hmm.
coming through the mountains where we had, a major snowfall was occurring at the same time as the hurricane. So, after that, I kinda steer clear of travel during a certain window. But again, I really wanna thank you for coming on tonight, and like I said, guys, I will be sharing all the links for you guys to be able to have an experience at the Holiday House. If you're really looking, South Carolina is beautiful, and there's so much history down there, that you can do so much and go down to the Holiday House, and then maybe take a trip to the old prison in Charleston or walk through the slave quarters in Charleston. I remember doing that down there where it's like, I guess, like a big market now, and we walked through, and it just, history came alive for me.
Hmm. That's actually, a lot of people call that place
Right.
the slave market, but that wasn't the market where they got sold. That's where they would go buy goods for
Yeah,
the
see,
household. The actual one was
yeah,
a few
see, we
blocks
were told that
away.
was the old slave markets.
Yeah, there's two of them. If you want to see the ones where they were actually sold, it's a museum now. They do showcase local stuff that were used on slaves in the second story, because it's where when they would come off the ships, they would actually get quarantined at. But that place is where the slaves used to go buy, certain things
Okay.
for the masters. So like fabric, certain things that they
Well,
didn't
see,
grow,
now I
certain
learned
vegetables, whatever.
something new tonight, so thank you. Now I will tell that to the
You're
girls
welcome.
because I have a group that I travel with, and, they'll be, happy to know the difference now.
Anything you want to know about Charleston, let me know. I know
Well,
more than most
definitely,
people.
and hopefully we can get down your way and check you out also. But again, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on tonight, and I'll be right back.
All right.
From our friends at Got Knockers, Strange Knocks Magazine. Strange Knocks Magazine is your ultimate companion for exploring the enigmatic corners of our world. Delve into the shadows with us as we uncover the mysteries surrounding cryptids like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and examine the tantalizing possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. Our pages are filled with compelling true crime stories that defy conventional explanation, alongside mind bending conspiracy theories that challenge the status quo. Whether you're a seasoned skeptic or a curious believer, Strange Knocks magazine invites you to expand your horizons and entertain the unexplained. With captivating articles, expert interviews, and reader submissions, each issue promises to spark your imagination and thrill your sense of wonder. Join us in our quest to illuminate the unknown, one strange knock at a time. From our friends at Got Knockers Strange Knocks magazine, read the description for further information.